welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Allie.
And I'm Sara.
And boy, do we have a show for you. As last week, this week, we are at the apex of everything, where everything just like intersects, crosses over. So we have so much to talk about today.
Yes, let's call it crossover season. We're in crossover season.
We are in crossover season because, you know, the WSL is winding down, the NWSL is gearing up. We're getting to the proper, you know, tasty part of Champions League. What more do you want?
I'm really excited to chat Champions League, Allie. I really am. We got a lot, like you said. We're going to start with the WSL, everybody. We're going to kind of flip it on its head right now because a lot of stuff is going on in the WSL. I'm arguably most excited to talk Champions League, also to hear how it was at Old Trafford because you were there last week. And because the games this week are Wednesday and Thursday, I'm giving it all away. But also NWSL, we got a lot of spicy stuff, including what the heck is going on with Kansas City and Washington? We didn't want to jump the gun on it, Allie. And I feel like we haven't. At this point, we can safely say, like, what's going on?
It says a lot right now. Like, teams are like 4 games in, it's giving you a good indicator, and it's not a good indicator for who were arguably the two most impressive teams last season.
I couldn't agree more. It's interesting because this is, oh gosh, I'm not even keeping track. Second year without the draft, I believe. And you would think that it would mean that the teams were at the top had more of a likelihood to stay at the top. And instead, almost this whole table's been flipped on its head. And it's so fun.
So yes, as Sarah alluded to, we will be starting with the WSL, then we will be talking NWSL, and then we will finish off with Champions League. But firstly, we have to do some quick story, which is Asllani has unfortunately done the dreaded 3 letters. For anybody who's watching this weekend, she went down in the 94th minute. You could see it. She planted her leg wrong, and she was in a lot of pain. And it got announced today that it is the dreaded 3 letters. And another reason I just wanted to quickly bring it up is because my friend of mine said, "Do we think she'll come back from this?" Because she is an elder statesman of the game at 36. That's their words, not mine, and they're older than me, so therefore they can say that. Do we think that she comes back from this?
It's a good question. It is. It was my first question, too. I mean, my God, my heart breaks for her. An ACL in the 94th minute. Also, you know, you're a year away from the World Cup as well. Like, if she was going to try to play in this World Cup as, like, her last World Cup with Sweden, I mean, there's still a chance, you know, with the right people around you, you can make that recovery. And no matter the age, I feel like sometimes ACL recoveries go well, like more easily, and sometimes they don't. And unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure which one it is, but like sometimes you just can't predict it. You just don't know. It's just based on the body. It's the same with pregnancy. It's like for some athletes, it's easy to come back from. For some athletes, it's not. So I don't think we can predict that. I think it's all really dependent on how her body responds. Has she done it before? All of that. Oh, but I'm heartbroken for her.
Do you know what? She hasn't. She actually put that in her message that this is the first serious injury she's had in her career.
Wow.
Like proper long, obviously she said knocks and niggles and things like that, but this is her first like long-term proper injury she has had in her career, which, to be honest, is pretty impressive to get to this stage.
Very, very impressive. Yeah. Well, our hearts go out to Asllani, and obviously that's a huge knock for London City Lionesses as well.
Which does lead us nicely into the WSL. So let's talk about all things WSL, because it was a cray-cray weekend of football.
What makes you say that?
Oh boy. So we had a weekend of derbies in the fact, so on the Saturday, in the fact we had the Merseyside derby, we had the Manchester derby, and then we had the North London derby. Manchester City were supposed to be able to clinch the title this weekend, but because Arsenal have 2 games in hand, technically still not mathematically done.
So our apologies. We did say last week that they were going to clinch this weekend, and Honestly, for all intents and purposes, they have. But yes, mathematically, they have not yet. There was no trophy lift. There was no celebration. Just to break it down for everybody, City have played 19 games. They have 49 points. Arsenal have played they have played 17 games. So they have 2 games in hand and 38 points. So 2 games in hand, 11 points back, which if you're doing the math, that means that they need some help also from City losing. And that is why it feels like, for all intents and purposes, City are going to secure this. But yeah, we will wait for them to officially lift the trophy, Allie.
But yes, the derby did happen, and
the United Derby, the Manchester Derby.
The Manchester Derby happened.
Certainly wasn't the United one this weekend.
No, so this is what we need to talk about. So Manchester City went 3-0 with 3-0 winners on that one, and they went 2-0 up within 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, it just wasn't. I mean, you've been saying it. United have not been in form, and despite it being played at Old Trafford, it was not United's day. Perhaps, there's a lot of things we can say about the why. You could look and say, okay, well, United played a Champions League game midweek, so there's that. City didn't have that. But, it's not like United were even traveling for that. They were home. They're at Old Trafford. You were there, which we will come on to. So what is it, Allie? I guess this kind of leads us into talking about Manchester United, because you brought some interesting news that kind of surprised me.
Yes, so it has been announced that it's looking like Mark Skinner is under review with Manchester United, and it's going to probably be dependent on whether they can beat Bayern in the Champions League, because it's dependent on if they have Champions League. And their league position at the moment, they are out of the top 3 for the first time in a while. They are currently 4th, and if they miss out on Champions League, then there is they're out of the FA Cup. They didn't win the Subway Cup. They've got no real hope of taking the league title, so they will come away with no silverware. And it was always winning silverware that kept him in his job previously. So if they can't continue in the Champions League, it does look like he will be donezo. Now, whether they'll keep him on till the end of the season and then look to replace.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be stupid not to, honestly.
Well,
you don't really.
Well, as someone pointed out, in the time he's been there, the men's team have had 7 managers, 4 permanent, 3 interim. So they're not afraid to make rash decisions in changing.
This I know, which is why for the past few years it's been so surprising to me that they haven't sacked Skinner. And we are never ones to come on this podcast and call for somebody's job. That is never what we want to do. These are human beings, and I've mainly said that I think it's surprising, though, that they haven't sacked him. Like, you win a FA Cup here, I don't know, you sneak into Champions League there. It all felt like very weird reasons to keep him around. So it's surprising to me that now this is the turning point. I feel like in seasons where they've underperformed, yes, they've done well. If you look at, okay, well, they won a trophy or they made Champions League, whatever. If you look at their season, they underperformed, and he stuck around. So the fact that like this now is the inflection point, it's just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, but I do know there's a lot of fans that are welcoming this news.
I'm not surprised by that.
He's not the most popular, it's said.
Which is weird, because he does seem to be popular among the players.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of, we talked about this a lot, because there is a lot of goodwill, especially in the media and players, in the fact of his partner is Laura Bassett, who's an ex-Lioness, has, been there for a long time. So there feels like there's a lot of goodwill there. But I think fans said that he signed 37 players in his tenure and 20 have left in his time. That they need something else. Like, their attendance is dwindling because they're not enjoying the football. Because I think a lot of fans, and I'm one of them for West Ham, which is, if you lose, that happens. But if you think your team has given absolutely everything and they're playing a good game of football, it's an easier pill to swallow. But when it's just, constantly passing back, hopefully maybe getting a counter. It's not enjoyable to watch.
That's fair. Have they looked into Casey Stoney, but maybe? It would be wild for a club to have Casey Stoney as their manager to build a team. Can you imagine having Casey Stoney to build a team in the WSL and then let her go? That would be crazy.
That would be wild.
That would be wild. Too bad they can't get her. Allie, I need to talk quickly. I don't love like reviewing penalties because we can't really throw up the video and talk about it. But we very quickly have to talk about Grace Fisk and the red card that she received this past weekend because I was a little stunned by it. I also think it's kind of funny that after the discussion of all of the cards in the NWSL last weekend, we're now talking about one of the dumber red cards I've seen in quite a while that was awarded this past weekend in the WSL, who looked at the NWSL and said, "Hold my beer. I got this." So, did you see it? Or should I explain?
Please explain, because I knew she'd got it, and then the Merseyside derby went crazy after that happened.
Okay, Grace Fisk plays for Liverpool. I believe this was in the dying minutes of the game. I can't remember because I was watching the highlights of it. I believe it was in the dying minutes of the game.
No, it was not. No, it's the second half. It was, I know that much, but it was...
Oh, I'm looking it up. 65th minute. Okay, so pretty solidly in the smack dab middle of the second half. All you see is Grace Fisk walking behind an Everton midfielder and just very clearly sticks her foot in between the cleats and trips the Everton midfielder. It just full blown walking behind somebody, sticking your foot out and tripping them for no reason. The ball's not even around, just for no reason whatsoever. You are laughing, Allie. Why are you laughing? Do you have anything to say about this? I don't feel like we need to beat a dead horse or like make this more than it is.
I'm laughing because you are the Liverpool captain. You are safer than you were, but you're still not safe from a relegation battle. This was an accumulation red card, so you're already on a yellow card, and then you go and do something dumb and get yourself sent off, which means your team now are down to 10. You had a 3-0 lead. It ended up being 3-2. Like, if Everton had had a little bit more time, they probably could have equalised, and therefore you've put your team in even further danger. Why?
Yeah, why? I can't be too hard on her because I did, in my flag football game this weekend, I did do something that warranted an unnecessary roughness call. And I will say, I fully blacked out in that moment. When your body does something and then your brain comes online and you're like, oh, I did that. Now, it wasn't terrible. It's not like I punched somebody in the face. Nobody needs to worry. I just kind of stiff-armed somebody, which is not allowed. So I'm not going to rag on her too much, but I'm also not a professional footballer and I don't get paid to do that. And I think that when you're not only a professional footballer, you're also the captain, you need to take a little extra care. I was also the captain of my flag football team. So there's that also. Never mind. I really don't have a leg to stand on right now, but I agree with what you're saying, Allie.
Yeah, I just think it was a dumb move because now I believe she can miss the FA Cup game, which will be less bad for Liverpool because if she has to miss the game in the league, the next game they're playing is relegation battle rivals West Ham.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to talk about the relegation battle. And I know there's other things you want to chat about, but this leads so nicely into this because we haven't spent a lot of time on it, but we have to discuss. So as it sits right now, Leicester City are in 12th. In other words, last place. They have 9 points. They do have a game in hand. West Ham are above them, sitting with 13 points. So you do the math, for example, if Leicester City win that extra game in hand, they are now sitting at 12 points. West Ham's just 1 point above Leicester City. Liverpool sit 4 points ahead of West Ham. So technically, yes, Liverpool are in a relegation battle, but they are obviously much more safe. West Ham, they're in the throes of a relegation battle right now, Allie.
Yeah, no, I'd say that. I feel a bit more, I still feel confident.
You do. It doesn't feel to you like, oh my God, we might go down. You feel pretty confident that you can do this.
Yeah, because Leicester haven't had any wins since December of last year, so they've not won anything in 2026, and their game in hand is Arsenal.
Yeah.
is the honest answer. And you look at their run of games, they've got London City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Everton, whereas West Ham have Liverpool, Aston Villa, Man City. I would say that both teams have 2 very winnable games there, but the way Leicester are currently playing, it's not going to be pretty, but I'm not worried.
Okay, fair enough.
If it comes to the last game of the season, then I'm worried, but because we've got Manchester City. But if it's we can get it probably wrapped up by the Villa game.
It's wild. There's only 3 games left in this entire league. I mean, I'm looking at this, right? So we're going pause right now for a few weeks. Games will resume for match day 20 on April 25th. There will be that extra game in hand. The Arsenal-Leicester City game will be played midweek, April 29th. And then you've got the first weekend in May, and then the third weekend in May. And that is it. That's it.
That's it. Season flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I suppose it does. All right. Let's wrap it up. Are there any other things you want to discuss here within the WSL?
So 2 very quick things. First off, we have to talk Villa Chelsea. That game was wild.
Yeah.
Villa go 1-0 up within 2 minutes because of a missed pass at the back. Chastity Grant pounced and they go 1-0 up. They then go 3-1 down within the next within like the next 25 minutes, but then go into halftime 3-3. Like this was insane.
It was insane. Let me just read the minutes that these goals were scored. So as you said, Grant for Villa scored in the 2nd minute. And then Chelsea's 3 straight goals to follow that were in the 20th minute, 23rd minute, and 27th minute. And then Christy Hansen for Villa scores 2 straight goals in the 31st and the 35th minute. Like absolute insanity.
And then Chelsea ended up taking it 4-3. Now, we mentioned Asllani at the beginning of the programme. Roebuck did go down injured in this game and had to be subbed off, and then they brought on D'Angelo. The reason I bring it on is because there was a lot of, until people realised how serious it was, and this is why tactical timeouts are terrible, there was a lot of booing. I know Sonia Bampastor looked very unimpressed with Roebuck being down for so long until you realise, no, she's actually injured and it's serious and they've had to sub her off. But this is why you don't do tactical timeouts, goalkeepers, because
this is why you don't flop in general as well. Like we see this all the time. When the very few times you'll catch me watching men's soccer, that happens a lot because they're flopping all over the place. And then on the 15th player that hits the ground, I'm like, get the hell up. And then that player's actually injured. Any prospect on that? How did Ellie Roebuck look at the end of the day?
Still not good. We've still not had any word on how she is. I would assume they're going to take this international break to like assess her and get her back. But yeah, it wasn't great. But then again, these things can look worse than they do. I know, for example, West Ham had Nystrom stretchered off after the Arsenal game, and then she was back playing in our back line against London City. So sometimes we have to be cautious.
I'll also say it was nice to see Sam Kerr in Chelsea scoring a goal.
And then my final thing is, I just want to know what's going on with Tottenham. And this feels like a weird conversation to have when they're 5th, which is much better than anybody predicted. But their last 5 games, they've got 1 win, which was against West Ham, and 4 losses. And their last 2 games, they've conceded 5 goals apiece. They've conceded 10 goals in the last 2 games. Now, granted, that was against Manchester City and Arsenal, but you feel like a team that is currently in 5th, they may not be able to beat the top 4, but, West Ham conceded 5 goals against Arsenal. That it's that sort of levels. So I just want to know what is going on at Tottenham. Spurs fans, if you know, let me know, because
let us know, because I feel like this happens on a regular basis. I feel like the Spurs will start strong and then they will start to fall around January. That's it. Like, do they just not do enough in the January window? Is that what it is? Is it as simple as that? Spurs fans, let us know. What do you think about that potentially being a January transfer window issue?
Yeah, please do let me know, because I'm very intrigued.
I'm not upset about it after this weekend, but I am intrigued. I will say, despite obviously rooting for Arsenal, for many, many, many years, Allie, I have wanted Tottenham to just be better, because this is a club that has the potential and has the funds and has everything. They should be contending. There's no reason why they shouldn't be. And that to me is the most heartbreaking thing. So let us know, Spurs fans. What do you think? Please Take us all out of our misery. Although, listen, I don't follow men's football, but my apologies to whatever you're going through on the men's side, because I do see some of it on social media and it looks pretty brutal. It really does. Although I don't think Allie has much empathy, because I think West Ham men are about to be relegated. Is that right?
Well, no, we're still in a battle. And it could be funny because it could be that Spurs get relegated over us, which for a West Ham fan, because we don't like Tottenham, would be hilarious.
I guess we'll find out. All right, let's talk Champions League. We're going to do Champions League. We'll hit around the world, and then we'll conclude this with the NWSL. But we got to talk Champions League because we're in the throes of the quarterfinals. Last week was leg 1. This week is leg 2. Luckily, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, which of course, why are you not just waking up and hitting play on Wednesday morning? I'm assuming you all are. The games are today, Wednesday, and tomorrow, Thursday. So you've got a lot of great games to hit. Let's talk about the games that are coming this week, what the previous results are, where we stand, Allie, everything.
Yep, let's go. So, let's do a quick hit on the results. So, much surprise to most people, Wolfsburg beat Lyon 1-0. Arsenal beat Chelsea 3-1. Barcelona beat Real Madrid 6-2. And Bayern beat Manchester United 3-2.
There were some incredible goals, screamers of goals in the Arsenal-Chelsea game. I feel like every goal was better than the next. I could not believe some of the goals we were seeing. Also, the Bayern United game, absolutely wild. That was at Old Trafford. Bayern come into town and takes down United at Old Trafford 3-2. So they are kind of sitting pretty going back to Germany. But you were there, Allie. I would love to hear how it was at Old Trafford. All you said was it was weird, and I am so curious what that means.
It was weird. It was really weird. So we were all in one stand, which is fair enough. Bayern scored in the first 2 minutes, which we all missed because trying to get in was an absolute nightmare because the stewards did not know what they were doing. But the bit that was weird, and anybody who listens to the other 8 will know that I mentioned it briefly, is every announcement for Bayern was in German and German alone. There was no English translation. There was no, it came up on the screen, but it was just in German. So we were on the concourse when they scored their first goal at 2 minutes in, and all you just heard was something dry, harder. It was just all in German. It was just all in German.
That doesn't make any sense. I appreciate that they have German there, but have it in both languages. There are people from both fan bases there.
But that was it. And then when Manchester United scored, it was only in English. But it was also for substitutes. So all of the substitutes was in German. And I think it was just really weird. And then my other favourite thing was,
been to Champions League games before. That didn't happen. That was very specific to this game.
It was very specific because I'd gone previously to Manchester United Atletico. There was no Spanish. And I also went to Barcelona, Wolfsburg in Barcelona last season. All Spanish, no German. It made no sense. I was very confused by the thing. And then my other favourite thing was where we were sat was right in front of where they set up the pitch side coverage, and you literally had on one side you had Alex Scott and a male footballer whose name I don't know, and then on the other side you had the German one, and they both had the same setup. It was just clearly one was in German, one was in English.
I love that. That's very cute. What are your thoughts? I can't remember. I think I said, let's get back into the scoreline. So obviously you went through the scorelines of what we just had from last week. I can't remember who said what in terms of the United Bayern game. I believe I said Bayern.
Yeah, I think we both said Bayern. But I will say Manchester United did take it to them, and that it was, they went 1-0 up. They scored again, the Manchester United equalised. They scored again, Manchester United equalised. It was only in the dying minutes that they got the third. So it wasn't a bad performance by Manchester United, I have to say.
No, but so they'll be the first game of this leg 2. They'll be Wednesday, game 1 on Wednesday. Despite how well United did show, they still are going into Germany down 1 goal in aggregate. What do you think for this second leg?
It is going to be much harder because it's going to be at Bayern. I know there is going to be a travelling contingent of Manchester United fans, but it is going to be much harder for them. I think Bayern are going to look to lock it down, and I do think it's the end of Manchester United's Champions League.
Yeah, I think it's just too much to overcome going into Bayern, and they're such a strong team. All right, the second game on Wednesday is Chelsea-Arsenal. Okay, I'm so excited. Leg 1 featured a wild game, honestly, that did kind of look like it was over in that first half. Arsenal were up 2-0 going into halftime. Chelsea, or should I just say Lauren James, came back and got one back. Lauren James's goal was just absolutely gorgeous. And it looked like maybe Chelsea were going to kind of claw their way back in, but Alessia Russo then scored her own really brilliant goal. Arsenal ended up taking it 3-1. Now, this was at the Emirates, so Chelsea are going back home, but it's a 2-goal difference in terms of aggregate. And the big question is, where are Chelsea going to play, as we've talked about many times?
So I believe it's going to be at Stamford Bridge.
Okay, which you've said is not where they play best.
It's not where they play best. It's not where they can pack it out with their fans, and because it's so local, there's going to be a lot of Arsenal fans. There's been a lot of complaints actually of Arsenal fans buying tickets in home ends because their away allocation's been sold out, and it just makes it that much more difficult. I will say, if I'm a Chelsea fan, I feel hard done by because you had 2 goals disallowed. One, hands down, was definitely disallowed. She basically karate kicked one of the Arsenal defenders, which was the second one. The first one should have stood, and I will die on that hill.
No, I agree.
In the fact that it was a normal tussle in a box. Players use each other as leverage all the time. It didn't really impede the defender. I think that was weak.
It was an over-the-back call, if I can remember correctly.
It was weak. So if I'm Chelsea, I'm annoyed. But look, they went 2-0 down against Manchester City, and everybody thought that was done and dusted, and they came back 3-2 in their last season. So if I'm Arsenal, I want to quit. I want a quick goal. I want to score really quick to make it really hard for them.
I just feel so bad for Chelsea and Chelsea fans that they don't play better at Stamford Bridge. Like, Emirates has become somewhat of a fortress for Arsenal. And if you're Chelsea, you want to start to pack your big stadium, as you should. I mean, you are one of the premier women's teams in the country. Why shouldn't you be doing that? Why hasn't Stamford Bridge become that much of a fortress?
I don't think they play there enough, and that's the problem. So they still use Stamford Bridge for special occasions, so
Yeah.
like for Champions League, big derbies, and I get that, but they have outgrown Kingsmeadow. I have been to Kingsmeadow multiple times, and they've outgrown it. Like, they have got the fan base to move to a bigger stadium. They should be using Stamford Bridge more. Now, I don't know if it's because of clashes with the men's team why they don't, but they could do what Arsenal have done and make Stamford Bridge their permanent home.
They should. They should, because it's just a disservice to them to then move them for big games when your home stadium and feeling the comfort of your home stadium matters most. And arguably, we saw this in Emma Hayes' last season when they came back from playing at Barcelona. They were at home in the second leg, and everything kind of melted at Stamford Bridge. And you called it, Allie, because you were like, I'm worried they don't play well there. And what do you know? The whole thing melted there. I hope that they can continue to play there more. That's going to be a really fun one. So those are the 2 Wednesday games of the second leg of the quarterfinals. Then we have 2 games on Thursday: Barcelona, Real Madrid, Lyon, and Wolfsburg. Let's start with the Barcelona, Real Madrid, because that's the first game on Thursday. Barcelona beat Real Madrid in leg 1 6-2. I'm impressed Real Madrid got 2 goals against Barcelona, and that's not a slight at Real Madrid. It really isn't.
Me too. That was a bit of a bloodbath.
Yeah, we knew it would be, though.
Yeah, they Barcelona scored 2 within like 10 minutes, and then it just went downhill from there.
And that was at Madrid, for the record. That was at Madrid. So leg 2 will be at Barcelona.
Yeah, they were 2-0 up, and then Linda Caicedo got 1 back, and then it was literally again another 2. Yeah, it was a bloodbath.
How much longer do you think Linda Caicedo stays at Real Madrid?
Not much longer, I think. She's going to want to win things.
I agree. Where do you think she goes?
Maybe to the WSL. She'll come to a WSL team. I can also see her go to a Lyon PSG.
You don't think she'll try to get to Barcelona?
No, I think there's too many players that play in her position and she wants to play. And I think that's the thing. If she was happy sitting on the bench, then sure, why not? But there's too many players in her position that I think would probably start before her.
Probably. I mean, she's incredible and she's a great talent, but Barcelona are a different level.
I was going to say this is not a slight at those. I think if she goes to a Lyon, a PSG, she slots in that first team, no problem, and starts.
Chelsea could really use her, to be fair.
Chelsea could really use her, and especially, hey, if Sam Kerr is on the way out.
Yeah. I mean, different roles. Sam Kerr's such a true number 9, you know? But, yeah, nevertheless, I mean, United could use her too. Let's be fair. Okay, final game. I'm really excited for this one. I'm not going to say a full I told you so because there's still a whole second leg left to play. All right, so Lyon and Wolfsburg are playing. Wolfsburg are up 1-0 in aggregate. It was a defensive match, and Wolfsburg were able to tuck one away in the first leg, which, as Allie did mention, was at Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg got an early one. Berenstein scored in the 14th minute, and that was it. And now leg 2 is back in Lyon, and Lyon are down 1-0 in aggregate. Perfect season on the line. What do we think?
I think they'll come back. I do. I think
we're going to pens. I think it's going to be a tie. I think it's going to be a draw. And then I think we go to extra time or pens for the decision. I have faith in Wolfsburg. We've talked about the Frauen Bundesliga a lot because Bayern is undefeated. They're at the top. Lyon, of course, are undefeated at the top of the French league. But I think Wolfsburg have been counted out because of how far they are in the table from Bayern points-wise. But that's just because Bayern's undefeated. And I think Wolfsburg is pretty darn good. I think this goes to pens. Pens decides it.
So the Champions League games, as we mentioned, will be played on Wednesday, the 1st of April, and Thursday, the 2nd of April, and we will have our semi-finalists.
Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world.
Over to Bosnia, and that is a wrap on the 2025-2026 season in the Premier Jenska Liga, and it's another title for SFK Sarajevo. That makes 21 titles in a row. The team managed to achieve this feat undefeated as well. Emnia and Lyotard finished in 2nd and 3rd respectively.
And to Peru, it's early days in Liga Femenina, but we have 2 frontrunners starting to break away. Lima and Sporting Cristal currently have 3 wins out of 3. Deportes, however, is close on their heels in 3rd with 6 points.
To Ghana, and we are halfway through the ERFA season, and 2 teams remain undefeated in each zone. Samanye Roots in Zone 1 and Valued Girls in Zone 2 both have 18 points apiece. There are some early relegation fears, however, for Playmaidens and Unic. Both have notched up 6 straight losses.
And finally, to Thailand, with round 7 over, our relegated teams could soon be decided, with Nakhon and Nakhonski both on the chopping block. However, at the other end of the table, it could not be tighter. BG College and Chonburi have just 1 point between them.
Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Wreck your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. You can add protein cold foam to your favorite drink or try one of our new protein lattes or matcha. Try it today at Starbucks.
This episode is brought to you by White Claw Surge. Great podcast pick, friend. No surprises there. After all, you're all about finding the tastiest flavors out there, just like White Claw Surge. And with big, bold flavors to enjoy, like blood orange, blackberry, cranberry, and more, it's time to go all in on taste. Unleash the flavor. Unleash White Claw Surge. Please drink responsibly. Hard seltzer with flavors. 8% alcohol by volume. White Claw Seltzer Works. Chicago, Illinois.
And finally, into the NWSL, we had our first midweek games of the regular season this past week into weekend games. So now, because we have 16 teams, there are going to be some midweek games. That's part of the schedule change so that the season itself isn't elongated further into November. There are now midweek games. The NWSL has done a good job of scheduling midweek games in terms of when you play a midweek game, you will never play one again the following week. It's always alternating, and they've kind of packed them further into the first half of the schedule so that as your legs and your bodies get tired in the second half of the season, you don't really have midweek games. So we saw the first midweek games in this 16-team schedule this last week, I suppose, last Wednesday, a week from a week ago, if this episode's dropping Wednesday. And of course, games over the weekend. And now it really just feels like a large enough data set, Allie, where most teams have played 4 games and we can really look at the trends that have started to evolve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we talked about it last week about teams that have surprised us. And all those teams are still doing really well. So it's proof that it wasn't a fluke that they got these results, that they're actually being consistent and strong.
At the top of the table right now, Los Angeles, San Diego, Seattle, Portland, Houston, all of them we spoke about, all of them still sitting pretty, have proven themselves. Bay FC also kind of sitting in that position as well. Does that surprise you, Allie?
Absolutely, because Bay were weak last season. Like they had some moments, but they weren't great, and it was, a bit sort of like, and also, as we mentioned, I think last week, in the fact that their back line is out, like their first choice back line is out. So the fact that they're still pulling off some decent results is really impressive, and I'm excited to see what will happen as they strengthen. So I know Kira Barry's doing some business for them.
Yeah, scored her first NWSL goal,
which is a Manchester United youth play product from the youth of Manchester United. So yeah, no, I'm happily surprised that Bay are actually doing pretty decent.
I can't say I'm all that surprised, to be totally fair. I obviously agree with what you said about the defense, so I don't expect them to be at the top of the league, but you look at who they've signed. You mentioned Kira Bailey. I mean, obviously they signed Claire Hutton, who is arguably one of the best midfielders in the country, coming up in the U.S. women's national team system. And then they got the legend Christina Giorelli, and you pair her as a true number 9 up top with like Rudy Kundananji out on the wing, and I just kind of feel like they would be underachieving if they weren't sitting like this right now. I do think at the end of the day, the back line will come bite them, but maybe they can just simply outscore what they need. But that brings us on to some other things, Allie, because there's the good and then there's the bad. And we have to talk about what is going on with Kansas City Current and Washington Spirit.
I don't know. I don't understand. Specifically Kansas for me, specifically for the Current, because they were so strong last season. They did so well last season, and they've got 1 win, 3 losses. They lost to Chicago, which, no offense to Chicago, but like,
I don't think even they would take offense to that.
But like I was trying to explain this to my friend who's now recently into women's football, and I was like, it's a bit like the Browns beating the Patriots. Nobody understands why that happened. But also their win was beating Utah, and it wasn't a good win. Like, they had to come from behind. Like, this is not the powerhouse Kansas City we saw last season, and I don't understand.
Yeah. They had their midweek game against Seattle, lost 3-0, and then had their weekend game on Saturday against Portland and lost 2-0. I will say, of their last 3 games that they just lost, they were all away. Obviously their home field is like quite the fortress, so I do expect it to turn around when they get home, but still, we must discuss. And for me, I watched Kansas City, and it's funny because we were talking about them last weekend after they played Chicago, and I asked you what was going on with Kansas City, and you were like, well, not much, and that's probably the problem. And yeah, they look disconnected, and frankly, they look tired. And we can come on to the stats of the games that they've just played against Seattle and Portland. But you also have to start at like the eye level test and what we can just judge by the game. And when you look and you watch Kansas City play, they are so disconnected on the field. And there is seemingly little to no energy. They look almost frustrated with each other if like a pass doesn't connect, for example. And I kind of think there's so many layers to this, but the two that I want to bring up are, number one, this is a team that has played deep into the postseason the past few seasons, and we have to account for the fact that does take a toll. That is a lot more minutes on your body. That's a lot more weeks of soccer. And then probably most importantly, that is so many significantly fewer weeks of recovery before you have to report to preseason. These players are basically getting no off season if they do make the postseason of the NWSL. That's what's happened. And so I do think we have to give some grace for that. And then my second thing is that, like, do I hate to say this? Yes. Am I going to? Yes, because I think it needs to be asked. Do we have to start to look at Chris Armas, who has taken over as head coach in place of Vlatko Andonovski this year? Vlatko's obviously transitioned into the sporting director role. Now Chris Armas is the head coach. This is his first season as the head coach. And it's not the Kansas City we're used to. And with such a drastic change, like, do we have to ask a question about that?
I think we do, because I think that's the big difference between last season and this season. Is we said it so many times last season, Vlatko is such a good club coach. That is what he's good at. He can bring a team together like no one's business. And if you look at Armas's like track record, is he's only ever really been the head coach twice before. Every other time he's been an assistant or interim, and he's only ever managed one women's team before. And I do think that makes a difference. And that was back in 2011 to 2014. And I do think that makes a massive difference in your coaching style. And so I don't think he's the right appointment for them.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how much leeway he's given right now. It's obviously a difficult job to follow Vlatko Andonovski, but Kansas City's just not looking like Kansas City. They got shut out 2 games in a row. And I mean, look, if you just look at the Seattle game, that's the midweek game, 3-0, Seattle won that. Expected goals, Seattle well over exceeded theirs. Their expected goals was 1.61. So there's a defensive issue for Kansas City, which we already touched on last week, which is surprising for many reasons, including how they performed last year. But there's certainly a defensive issue between the backline and the goalkeeper. There is a problem. We have seen that now. I think we can comfortably say that's a problem. But there's also a problem on the offensive side. It's not like they're getting so many shots on target and they're just getting unlucky. Their expected goals was 0.49. They had 6 shots total, 3 of them on target. They're just not getting into the right spaces. They're not getting into dangerous positions, which is actually kind of the opposite of what I'll say the other team we want to talk about, which is Washington, Allie, because we were worried about Washington after game 1 because they didn't have any shots on goal, 0. They corrected that problem big time. They have been down in and around the attacking third. They have been doing a great job. They've been getting chances. They've been getting shots on target. They've been getting shots on goal. We have to give them credit. And I actually think if you're a Washington Spirit fan, even though you have 0 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss, I actually think there's less cause for concern if you're a Spirit fan than if you are a current fan.
They're finding the back of the net. Okay, so defensively they managed to work that problem out against Denver. Obviously it was a 0-0, not a win, but you know, they are getting there. So like you said, there's less of a concern. I feel like Washington, they've got some players back and it's looking decent. But yeah, I'm still concerned though for Spirit. I I think they're going to be comfortably mid-table.
Interesting. I think the stats tell a great story for Washington, because if you look at, for example, their 0-0 against Denver, Denver actually had expected goals of 1.16. Washington's expected goals was 0.58. It ended 0-0. Their shots were relatively even. Shots on target relatively even. It was shots 9 and 10. Shots on target, both teams had 2. But where it gets kind of interesting and where I think it tells a story, Washington well outperformed Denver in terms of final third entries, but touches inside the opposition's box were completely equal. So, in other words, when Denver were getting down in their attacking third, they were getting into dangerous opportunities inside the box. When Washington were getting down inside the attacking third, which was a lot, they actually weren't getting inside the box that much. And I think that's kind of been the tale for Washington Spirit so far. And I think that they will figure that part out. Allie, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Go for it.
With a big question. It's week 4, week 5? I don't know what to call it because there's some midweek games. Most teams have played 4 games here in the NWSL. We've got a few teams that have played 3. So obviously with what we know and looking at the table right now, you have to pick one team that's going to win the Shield. Not the championship, the Shield. Based only on what you've seen out of their 3 or 4 games. Who wins the Shield? Who's been the best team in these few weeks?
Angel City. And I'm not just saying it because they're currently top, but like I've been impressed with the way they've played. They've been quite masterful in how they've played. They've got a good like match up in terms of players. They've signed really well. They've retained really well. So yeah, I'm saying as things stand on round 4/5, Angel City will take the Shield.
I mean, it's fair. They're the only team that hasn't lost a game, for the record. They're the last standing undefeated team. I kind of might say San Diego, only because I think their ceiling is higher. They haven't hit it yet, but I think their ceiling is higher. They just added Catarina Macario, which is going to bring it even higher. So I'm going to go with San Diego Wave. SoCal, showing up. All right, I think that does it for this week, Allie.
Yep. Just very quickly, breaking news. London City have made a formal announcement on Aslani's injury. Unfortunately, it's worse than originally announced. It is a multi-ligament tear, including the ACL. So it sounds like it's also the MCL as well as the ACL. So that is going to be a very lengthy recovery process.
We wish her all the best. All right, that does it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. We will see you next Wednesday. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
But I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.